My favorite story told to me by a cowwalker. Call him Mike. Mike was fishing on a lake when a game warden walked up. Mike knew this game warden, and knowing that the game warden is on the heavier side, Mike immediately drops his pole and takes off running. The game warden, who thought Mike was fishing without a license, takes off to catch him. Mike leads him on a chase for a while till he stops, looks at the game warden and says, "Wait, I have a fishing license." The game warden was pissed at Mike for making him run through the woods. The week before high school graduation, me and a bunch of my buddies skipped school to go drink beer at a pond in the woods, rural Alabama. Not much else to do. About an hour after we got there, a game warden pulls up and 5 of my 7 friends chunk their beers in the pond. Lol. It was some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I just tucked mine behind a bush I was sitting by. The game warden knew we were about to graduate and didn't want to ruin it for any of us, so he told us if we'd clean the cans out of the pond and pour out the rest, we were free to go. I started taking my shoes off just to get it over with, and he said, "Oh, hold on, son. You didn't throw one. I saw everyone who did. Everyone go retrieve your own cans, or you're all going to jail." Driving. Anything driving related. People suddenly think the rules of the road don't apply anymore as soon as they see your police vehicle, like a police vehicle has some holy grail road pass for way stops. For example, even if the other person has the right of way, they wait until you go. They will just sit there. A cop pulled me over because I was drinking from a McDonald's soda cup. Apparently alcoholics use McDonald's cups to hide their drinking liquor or beer. Is this common for people to do? I'm asking cops. I wasn't drinking alcohol or liquor by any chance. I literally drove out of a McDonald's parking lot, pulling up at a 4-way stop, and the person on another side immediately puts on their seatbelt, drawing attention to something I never would have noticed otherwise. We don't see many armed police officers in the UK, so whenever I'm walking around the city centre and see uniforms walking around with MP5s, I suddenly become hyper aware of my surroundings just in case bullets start flying. I don't know if this is really common or not, but a friend of mine's dad used to be a cop and he noticed that whenever he would walk by people, they would sort of stand up straight and smile nervously at him until he passed them. Don't know if this happens in other places, or if just Americans are just really bad at looking as normal as possible. I'm a probation and parole officer for law enforcement authority in my state. We regularly do home visits on our offenders to verify their address and make sure they're within the guidelines of their supervision. Almost without fail, everyone is just about to start cleaning whenever we arrive. I'm not there to judge the state of their house. I just want to make sure they're not doing anything blatantly illegal and that the address they gave is valid. But they always point out a completely dry mop with no soap or water around to somehow show that they are good people. Whatever, there's worse things they could be doing. I was crossing a quiet road one time at my college and campus security came up and slowed to wait for me to pass by. I managed to trip myself up and fall flat on my face thinking they were going to arrest me for jaywalking despite the road having a 15 miles per hour speed limit and no actual crosswalks. Doing the proper speed limit, noticing a cop at a speed trap and still braking, causing a chain of traffic as people have to stop because you stopped. Mitchell. I was on a ride along with a cop once. We were driving down a main road and he said, "Check this out." He dropped his speed down to 5 or 10 miles per hour below the speed limit. All of the cars around us immediately slowed down to his speed. He laughed and sped up / slowed down a couple more times. It was kind of messed up, but because of it, I never worry about passing a cop or anything, as long as I'm not going over the speed limit. I once pulled over a woman for speeding, and as I'm getting out the car she leans out the driver window and screams, "Officer, I have a gun," while frantically waving both hands out the window. She looked like a swan flapping its wings and making noises. I'm trying to hide my laughter while telling her to step out of the vehicle. I lost it when she wobbled out the car 8-month pregnant and was waddling like a duck. I told her to sit back in her vehicle and I had to recompose myself. We had a civil discussion on the appropriate way to inform a cop you have a firearm without looking like a suicidal lunatic. To this day I will randomly think of the pregnant swan woman and laugh. Not a cop but witnessed it. Saw a middle-aged man hide his beer in a planter when he saw a cop. We were in a beer garden. Cop wasn't even on duty yet. He was there to drop off a birthday card to a friend before he started his shift. Side note, daffodils are bad for securing drinks. Beer fell. Edit. So, because this is a commonly mentioned theory, his stunt would make a bit more sense if he was on parole or something else that placed an alcohol restriction on him. Having said that, the city is what you might call busy when it comes to crime. Even if, by some fluke, a cop happened to be aware you were on parole and in a metro region of several million, that's so big if the city cops generally have a reputation of somewhat ignoring that kind of stuff, unless they already had a bone to pick with you. Of course, it's not unbelievable that a drunk would fail to come up with a play it cool plan. I would like to think his friends, who found all of this rather funny, would have been more concerned if he were on parole though. Granted, crappy friends certainly exist. I still advise against the use of daffodils in concealing a drink that you may or may not be allowed to have. I went to a loud music call when I was in training once to a party I had actually been invited to. The party was to celebrate passing a grad school test in the first week, so we weren't all close friends yet and didn't expect them to recognize me in uniform. No one really knew I was a cop. I walked up to the patio and immediately saw a kid I had been hanging out with that day stoop down to set his beer down and take a step away from it. Started laughing and called him out by name for doing it so blatantly. Dude was over 21 and kept showing me his ID to prove it, even though I never asked. I remember reading about a state trooper who was driving below the limit and nobody wanted to pass him. There were many cars behind him. Finally someone passed him, and the state trooper pulled them over and told them he was about to go off duty and had picked up a gallon of ice cream to take home but then got called back. He decided the first person brave enough to pass him would win the ice cream. I love that story.